Tonight, Paul Ryan and Donald Trump square off in Washington, D.C., and illegal aliens are grabbing more welfare than Americans. Plus, my exclusive interview with a transgender. We've got these stories and more, so get ready, because it's all unfiltered. Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me this evening. What type of politician is Paul Ryan? That's the question we address in the DML report. As a Donald Trump supporter, I believe politicians fall into one of four buckets. Bucket one includes those who are real Donald Trump supporters. There aren't many of these people. They are brave souls, true fighters. A perfect example is Senator Jeff Sessions. Love that guy. Bucket two includes the never Trump advocates. These are typically the lackluster types. If they were baseball players, they'd have what I call warning track power, meaning they can hit the ball to the fence, but they can never hit it over the fence. Lack of talent, not very strong, whatever it is. They just can't deliver a home run no matter how hard they try. Mitt Romney and Lindsey Graham serve as poster boys. Bucket three is the biggest bucket. This bucket is filled with the spineless and feeble who won't take a stand for or against Trump. They remain silent and play it safe. These are the politicians who are useless and never get anything done. We are tired of these people. And then there is bucket number four. It is filled with politicians who speak out of both sides of their mouth. This is where House Speaker Paul Ryan fits. From one side of his mouth, Ryan publicly states his dislike for many of Trump's policies, such as Ryan doesn't want a wall to be paid for by Mexico. Ryan doesn't want a ban on all Muslims until we can get our affairs in order. And Ryan doesn't agree with Trump's style of messaging. It's too harsh for him. But from the other side of his mouth, Paul Ryan says he remains open to backing Trump as the nominee, but when the time is right. The time is right. Now, obviously, I was not in the room today when Donald Trump and Paul Ryan met in Washington, D.C., but I will bet my last dollar it killed Paul Ryan to sit at the table with the man who will soon get the job Mr. Ryan so desperately sees himself in one day. But Paul Ryan will never get there, because Paul Ryan can't hit the ball over the fence, whether he realizes it or not. That said, today, Ryan created a fifth bucket. It's the bucket where you see your career in front of you, and no matter which path you take, you are screwed. If Ryan supports Trump, but doesn't go all in, meaning if he doesn't give it his best efforts, then the American people will blame Paul Ryan if Trump loses to Hillary. Ryan's career will be over. Now, if Ryan decides not to support Trump at all, and that's sort of where we stand right now because he didn't support him after the meeting today, we will blame him even more so. And his career is over if Hillary wins. There is only one choice for you, Mr. Ryan. Bucket number one. Get with Senator Sessions and support Trump 110%. Hold your nose while doing it if you have to. But heed this warning. If you do not land in bucket one really soon, you can bank on the fact that you will end up in bucket six. What's bucket six? For that description, you can call on your old buddy Eric Cantor. You remember him, right? The House leader who was pro-amnesty. He's been in bucket six for 2 years now, and he's never getting out. Joining me now to discuss this is political strategist and founder of the Policy People, Cathy Lynn Taylor. And sitting across from me is the CEO of ChangeUp Media, Ben Weingarten. All right, so I'm going to start off with you, Kath, right? So Trump goes to D.C. He's going to meet with Paul Ryan. It's going to be this big love fest. As soon as he's gone, Trump being gone, Ryan goes to Twitter, puts out, we've got it here to show, puts a picture of himself meeting with children, and underneath it underscores my most important meeting of the day. Yes, children are the most important thing in our lives. He could have said it a different way. As far as I'm concerned, he used those kids to do a back shot to the head to Mr. Trump. Do you agree?
I do agree. I mean, here was an important day for both of them, as Trump is probably learning more than he probably ever wanted to. Washington is a land of statements, and these statements have importance, and this was obviously a prepared statement. It gave credit to both of them. It talked about more similarities, fewer differences, unity, and all in all, it was kind of a non-event, but an important non-event in that it was indeed a non-event. And then, as you said, a few hours later, out comes this tweet. Any of us as parents, of course we know the children are the most important part of a day, but that's not the point of this day, and that's not the point of Speaker Ryan during his work day to make so clear. And so I think that if you're Trump, you're a little bit perplexed at that, or maybe if you were a fly on the wall in the meeting, you would not be. But nonetheless, it was unnecessary, and it continues the drama a little bit more, right?
I think basically what this comes down to is the whole narrative of Paul Ryan's career has been about, I'm the Jack Kemp, Ronald Reagan, optimistic conservative, and that's how he's cast his entire speakership, trying to take conservatives towards a new, softer, gentler, warmer, kinder type of conservatism. So you're going to see basically that because Paul Ryan is both substantively and stylistically basically the opposite of Donald Trump, that they're going to be running two campaigns basically in parallel. And by the way, what they're going towards are differing. On the one hand, Paul Ryan wants to retain power in the House and in the Senate. On the other hand, Donald Trump wants to get elected president. And those two things are potentially mutually exclusive.
Yeah, but let me say this. I think that Paul Ryan is touting power that he really doesn't have. And here's why. It is not Trump's responsibility to unite the GOP. It's his job to unite the country. And the people are bigger than the fools in Washington, D.C. I hope Trump remembers that. Well,
it's an interesting point that you make, Dennis, an astute one, I think, because there's been a lot of writing among policy experts this week about who has the Trump card. Yeah. Is it Trump or is it Ryan? Who has the power? Who needs each other more? And if you think about the country as a whole, they should both need each other. They should both work together. It's hard to say one is more powerful at this point than the other. And in no way is this an endorsement of either. But if you look at it, really Trump has more power at the moment. He has more momentum in the country. He's garnering far more headlines and media attention. He has less at stake. He has nothing to lose, whereas Paul Ryan has a very big election at home that he'll likely win, but nonetheless a big election. Mm-hmm. And so you can look at the policy experts among ourselves and others who are debating this point. But to your point, ultimately, this election so far has shown that it's the people that have the most power. And in this case, that means Trump is ahead of that on that game.
Eric Cantor thought he was going to win that election pretty easy, too.
Right.
And look where he is.
Right. Although we have to be careful as people that every time we want change, every time we want the underdog, does not always mean something better or more gets done. And so that's not...
Although Dave Pratt's done a pretty good job.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not necessarily a reflection of the Cantor loss. But we do have to be careful. Change for the sake of change is not always the best thing. We need to look at principles and, as Ben said, the right kind of values and conservative leadership that we want.
One of the things that... one of the reasons why I think Paul Ryan did what he did with that tweet is because if there's one... if Trump has an Achilles heel, it's that he doesn't know how to turn the other cheek. He doesn't know how to blow you off as you're irrelevant. You say something bad about him, he's got to come back twice as hard. I mean, if I see a tweet later on with Trump sitting next to a dog and saying my most important meeting of the day, I'm going to say, that's so Trump-esque because he needs to upstage.
Right.
At the best part, I'd like to see Trump just be like, he's irrelevant and just move on. I don't think he's going to do that.
Well, I mean, I always go back to The Godfather as sort of the guiding light for this, and he is sort of like Sonny. He's the hothead, but he's learned not to always go towards the toll booth and go after the people who are the aggressors going after him. So will he tweet a picture like that? I don't know. Politically, might that actually work because his fans like that? Yeah. Yes, probably so. And then the last thing that I would say is West Virginia showed us that all of these Bernie supporters, basically, assuming he loses, like a third of them, I think the exit poll showed, were willing to go over and vote for Donald over Hillary. Now, West Virginia is an interesting place. There's a whole coal issue. Yeah. But nevertheless, Paul Ryan and Donald Trump are not going for the same voters, so thus they're going to cater to different audiences with their rhetoric and their policies.
I think Paul Ryan is basically digging his own grave. And I think that tweet today was just another shovel going like this. I want to change topics. I want to go over something that I think is a little bit more important, and that is who Trump really will be picking for his VP. We have a short list here. It's actually his short list. We've got Newt Gingrich, Jan Brewer, who was the former governor of Arizona, Mary Fallin, who I'd never heard of before until last week, is the governor of Oklahoma, Joni Ernst, the Iowa senator, Marco Rubio, I don't even know why he's on this list, and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. What do you think of this list, or do you think there's somebody else not on this list which will end up getting it?
I think that it's a fine list. There's no one that really jumps out at me. Personally, I think someone like a Governor Fallin or Brewer is a better choice than others for various reasons. There's a lot of talk that Newt Gingrich is at the top of the list. Yep. But I think that Trump is not picking anyone from a list because he's Trump, and that would not be news, and that would not be the way he operates, and that would not have the element of surprise. And so if I were a betting woman, I would say that it's probably not somebody on this list.
Yourself?
Well, I think that I had always figured that Trump would say, I'm going to take care of the economic and domestic portfolio, and then I'm going to bring in someone who's above the political fray, someone on the national security, defense, foreign policy side, like a general, as a running mate. I think that would be smart.
Yeah.
That said, he has articulated that he's looking for someone who he can promulgate policy to, and then they can actually go make the sausage. They know actually how to execute and implement an agenda. To that end, there's no one stronger on that list than Newt Gingrich. I think there are a couple other benefits to Gingrich as well, and I'm just viewing this objectively. I'm not for or against any of these folks.
Yeah.
But Gingrich, not only was he the Speaker of the House and actually passed an agenda under a Democratic precedent, but also he will help kind of appease the fears of a lot of conservatives who wonder if Donald Trump is going to surround himself with people who are yes men or people who actually know how to get things done and are conservative and have proven that in the past. And then lastly, I think Newt Gingrich would love to get back at the Clintons one more time and go head-to-head with Hillary Clinton.
Let's remember that the establishment was not the biggest proponent
of
Newt Gingrich. I agree with a lot of what Ben said, but I think, having been in the White House, that Donald Trump, if he's president, which it's very likely he will be, he's going to have congressional liaisons and this type of advisor. I think he would be better served, knowing how policy is truly made, to have a real policy expert, someone who understands the ins and outs of Office of Management and Budget, of foreign policy, understands the Hill but doesn't have to be a Hill person, and someone who is a counter to his personality. He and Gingrich are kind of two peas in a pod. Someone who can balance him with much more diplomacy and kind of be the yin and yang.
I got to wrap it at that. I can just tell you that here's the list. Here's what my thoughts are on this list. All right, we'll be back.